All right, this is our next episode of True Wrestling Fans Discussions. This is the second part of our Sid series. I'm your host, Mike.
I'm Frank. Let's get into this second part, man. We start off now. He in 1995, he's just re-signed to WWE.
What
Actually,
was he in USWA for a while? He was
yeah,
down
he
there
went.
for a while.
hmm Yeah, he went there just to kind of. I mean, he was looking for something at the time. WWE wasn't interested in '93 when he left. Pretty much nobody was interested in him at the moment, so he had to kind of not reinvent himself, but just reestablish himself that he could prove that he
Just,
could work for one of the big companies.
wait, I think he said something about he was down in the South. Was it Memphis? Was that Jerry Lawler still had his company down there at the time? Not sure if it was
Yeah,
Jerry Lawler,
I
but
believe so.
I think it might have been Jerry Lawler.
USWA, yeah,
Yeah, and Vince would send some of the WWE guys down there,
yeah.
and they would wrestle Sid, and you got the impression Vince was kind of checking in on him every now and again. So was it? I don't know if it was Sean. Was it Sean and Diesel that came up with the idea to bring him in
I know
in
Sean had,
'95?
yeah, Sean had the idea.
I think it was Sean and Diesel. I think they're the ones that told the office
Yeah,
to
because
bring him
Kevin
in.
Nash and him were like this. I mean, they were
Mm.
best buds. I mean, hell, Sid could have been the the last member of the clique for all we know. I mean, that he was in tight with all of them. So
Yeah, so it comes back up.
he signed with them February 20th, 1995. Returned to Raw. He returned with the name, now the moniker Sycho Sid.
Psycho Sid. Do you know why they named him Psycho Sid?
Enlighten us.
Because of Arn Anderson. Him
Oh, the whole
stabbing
scissor incident.
him stabbing Arn Anderson. So it was because that's why they named him Psycho Sid.
And they spelt it with an S rather
Hmm.
than the regular way, which was
Yeah,
kind of cool. He looked a lot smaller, than his beefed up 1992 run. He
a
was a
little bit. He
little
looked a little small.
skinny. Yeah, looked like he was off the roids a little bit.
Right, but 90 when we get into it later, in 96 he's jacked again. Like he's
Oh yeah,
huge. Yeah.
yeah. It didn't take long.
But don't call him Psycho. Remember he used to say, "Don't call me Psycho. Don't call me Psycho."
The name fit him because really he was
He
a nut
didn't
job.
he didn't want the name too. Like they told him and he's like, "No, I don't want that name." And then he goes out to the ring and they introduced him as Psycho Sid, and that's how he found out. Man, and then they gave him the music too. He didn't know about any of that stuff.
I like the music.
I like the music too, but that's from
Yeah,
Psych. That's from the movie
yeah.
Psycho.
hmm
And then they had I think even his lighting that they had for him was supposed to mimic like the effect of the shower scene in Psycho. For those of
Yeah.
you who haven't seen it, it's a famous scene.
Highly
So
recommend that movie.
yeah, they put him in the middle of the whole Shawn Michaels Diesel feud that was going on at the time because I guess Shawn had just won the Royal Rumble, right? So he was about to face
He's going to
Diesel.
face Diesel
Hmm.
WrestleMania. So yeah, so he was the bodyguard of
The
Shawn
bodyguard. Yep,
Michaels. Oh, Shawn's always got to have a bodyguard.
yep.
So this didn't last long too, because I mean, going into WrestleMania, Sid wound up distracting Earl Hebner, which gave Diesel time to recover and eventually beat Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
And this led to the next night, the infamous night on Raw, that Diesel was going to gladly give Shawn Michaels a rematch. It was actually going to be set up for the first In Your House pay-per-view. The match was originally going to be Diesel versus Shawn Michaels. But when Shawn told the big man, "I'm going to give you the night off,"
But
it didn't click in his head.
to get into a little bit of the backstory, what happened was Bruce Pritchard and somebody else were pushing Vince to turn Shawn Michaels babyface because they were like, this guy could be a babyface. Like, look how great of a wrestler. But, he was obsessed with the big guys. Finally, after the WrestleMania performance, it dawns on him. It dawns on Vince, and he says, I got to turn this guy babyface. So that's when he made the switch to he's going to turn Shawn babyface, and he decided, okay, Sid will help him become babyface by beating him up.
You could kind of see that it was coming that night on Raw, especially the way Diesel was talking to Shawn about, I'll gladly give you a rematch. He was talking about the respect. And then Shawn reciprocated with that later on that night, saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't normally see that in the rivalry. So they were hinting at it. And then the final nail in the coffin was telling Sid, I'm going to give you the night off.
And nobody gives Sid the night off.
And he tells him, you don't give me the night off. 3 power bombs later.
That was great.
Yes, it was.
One of the jackknives, I think, was really the power bomb, I should say, was messed up. I think he kind of messed it up, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it was going into this or it was a result of this. Sean had a legitimate back injury that actually
Yeah,
kept him out for 6 weeks after this.
yeah. I don't. I've heard that it was from that night, but it could have easily been from the WrestleMania match.
I mean, the
So
storyline always goes if you get a beatdown like this, you're off camera for a while until you
right,
make your
because
miraculous return.
I think the initial plan was to have Sid fight Sean, and when Sean got hurt, they had to pivot just to Diesel versus Sid. I think that's
Yeah.
what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
That
then
was a
so it in your
stinker.
house won. Yes, it was. I didn't even get that one. I didn't even start getting those in
My
your
friend,
houses until Shawn Michaels was in for the Intercontinental title match
I had a friend that
against your boy.
he yeah he recorded it and he let this me the next day at school. I remember he brought me the VHS. He recorded it for me.
It was I mean,
Yeah,
1999 back then for the pay per view for a 2 hour event, like 5 matches. It was like an NXT thing. I mean, granted, it was something that they were
it was like a
starting.
clash. It was more like a clash of the champions, I would say.
Yeah, but I always thought WWE was behind the times when it came to the pay per views because 3 years prior they should have been doing this with the monthly ones because WCW was starting to do about 6 a year at
Right,
this
they
point,
were
plus the Clash of Champions.
yeah.
So I always thought that they started this too late, and the inaugural In Your House. I mean, yeah, it wasn't that good.
The match wasn't good either.
No.
The problem is you got two big guys
Hmm.
with two similar styles. It just don't. It doesn't. It sounds like a great idea on paper. It sounds like, oh man, I can't wait
Oh
to
yeah,
see these two
definitely.
monsters go at it. But then you realize like those matches, unless you got a guy like Undertaker
Yeah, that's
or
who's
Kane
agile.
or Kane for that matter, because Kane
Yeah,
can move around.
as long as your big man is
Can
agile,
move around. Yeah, it
exactly.
doesn't. You know,
And these two couldn't.
no.
So, but
Although Sid,
Sid,
I think Sid was when he was younger. Sid was a little bit athletic when he was younger.
yeah,
Remember him? He used to kick up in WCW. He would do the kick up
yeah.
before. So
In any event, I mean, Sid returns to the ring, loses by disqualification. Obviously, neither, this way he doesn't lose face. He doesn't get pinned by Diesel, the famous DQ thing, make them both look good coming out of this. Following the match at this stinker, Sid and Tatanka attack Diesel, which then, of course, who comes to help Diesel but Bam Bam Bigelow, who's now out of the $1 Million
right,
Corporation
they had thrown him out. Yeah,
because we jumped the gun a little bit prior to this pay per view in April. Before it, Sid became a member of the $1 Million Corporation.
right.
Now,
Yeah,
now that he was away from Shawn Michaels.
yeah.
So, and at this point, I think Ted's just getting desperate for people
Pretty much.
because none of the people he got. I mean, King Kong Bundy, I think by this time was gone. Bigelow was out of the corporation with the loss to LT at WrestleMania. So he was pretty much looking for people. The best go-to guy, I guess, for him would have been Sid.
Sid, yeah.
And so now Bigelow and Diesel are a thing here. And it's funny because at the King of the Ring, Sid and Tatanka lose to Diesel and Bam Bam. They had the tag team match rather than the title be on the line.
Right.
Following that at In Your House 2 in July, Sid faced Diesel once again for the title in a lumberjack match.
I remember
This
that.
is where
That
the
was
feud
another.
ended.
That was another stinker, wasn't it?
Yep, and another loss for Sid. So
Yeah.
now you brought this guy back, and you haven't done a whole lot with him. Several pay-per-view losses and whatnot. His next feud was supposed to be Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam, but he was replaced by Razor Ramon at the request of WWE President Gorilla Monsoon. Mainly, I think it was because I think they were trying to boost the pay-per-view buy rate or something, and they for that they duplicated the ladder match, which didn't go well. Not as good as the first one, anyway.
It was still good, but it wasn't as good as the first one.
It will never be as good as the first.
No.
I think they with the SummerSlam '95, I think they really kind of overtried. I guess if that makes any sense, as far as the matches that they did, the whole card itself was a stinker, pretty much. I didn't like it, and I don't know if we would have gotten a better match with Sid and Shawn. I like that they rekindled the thing between Shawn and Razor. So, but it was what it was. So Sid actually got his rematch anyway with Shawn September 5th, 1995, for the Intercontinental title. He lost after 3 super kicks.
Yeah.
I remember that one. I thought that was cool. He just kept getting up.
That one I remember, yeah.
Sean's like, all right, I'll do another one.
Yeah, that was cool.
Because now Sean is a fan favorite, so everybody is enjoying his antics. And when they turned him fan favorite, his popularity now skyrocketed fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this was good for him. The next feud for Sid, which didn't benefit him any better, was Henry Godwin.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. Again, this is 1995, dude. I mean, this is what we got in '95. It was a very bad year.
Bad year.
Sid won against Henry Godwin at In Your House 3 in September. Thank God the feud only lasted that month. November on Raw, Sid, if you remember this one, Sid had fought Razor in a non-title match for the Intercontinental title. The special guest referee was the 1-2-3 Kid. And I thought something was funny here when I watched it. I'm like, oh, why is his buddy the referee? I mean, this is not going to go well for Sid. And 1-2-3 Kid put the money in the pocket, counted the 3 count.
Yep.
1-2-3 Kid's part of the $1 Million Corporation, which I think killed him. Putting him in there just
over there, over there.
Yeah. Well, several months later he'd be on his way out anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this was I didn't think this was a smart move on the 1-2-3 Kid's part. It was putting him into the corporation.
It didn't work.
Especially then they tag him briefly with Sid.
That's it, yeah.
I mean, that right there is ridiculous. What was I gonna say? You go into Survivor Series now, and Sid and DiBiase helped 1-2-3 Kid pin Marty Jannetty to be the sole survivor in I think it was an Underdogs match or whatever nonsense garbage opening match that was. I don't even want to remember it. Later that night, you remember they had that wild card.
Yeah.
I'd actually like that one. I thought that was cool, kind of mixing it up. Yeah, you had Ahmed Johnson watching Shawn Michaels. Of course, somebody's always got to watch Shawn Michaels back. You got Sid on his team, which makes it even worse. It was Sid, Shawn Michaels, Ahmed Johnson, and the British Bulldog versus Razor, Yokozuna, Owen Hart, and for whatever reason, Dean Douglas. So Sid was eliminated by Razor after Shawn accidentally super kicked him. And I remember when he did it, he's like, oh, well, I don't care. I don't like him anyway. So in any event, as we go down Sid's debacle of 1995, at In Your House 5 in December, Sid teamed with the 1-2-3 Kid to face Razor and Marty Jannetty. Yeah. Can you believe that they lost? Sid and the Kid lost that match. This was just not a good year for Sid to return to the WWE.
Yeah, it
really wasn't. You bring this guy back, who's pretty much he could be your main eventer.
Yeah,
he could be one of those guys you need, and you just trashing him.
They didn't know what they were doing in '95. '95 was a mess.
Oh, seriously, man, I'm surprised they survived past 1995. And then even made it worse is the next night on Raw, they had that first ever Raw Bowl, which was garbage. Sid and the 1-2-3 Kid teamed up, and they lost it because the Smoking Guns won it. And at this point now, Sid had suffered a neck injury and wound up leaving WWE.
Mm-hmm.
So his neck injury was the best thing for him, unfortunately, at this point, because he's becoming the laughing stock. It was sad to see. However, after his time off, they decided that they needed to utilize this man. And boy, did they ever. Not because it was about 6 months that he was out. He returns in July of '96 as to be announced to be the replacement for the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, but the thing was, Warrior got suspended, and so they needed to. He called Vince called him up and said, "Oh, I really need you. Can you just fill in these house shows for me? Just do a couple house shows dates." And he was like, he had a job and doing something else. But he decided, okay, fine, I'll come in for a couple of spots, whatever. And then that turned into, hey, can you work in your house? And then can you come back full time? And he basically negotiated a guaranteed contract.
Yeah.
So,
which actually worked out for him this time because he had more success on it than he had prior.
Yeah.
So he at In Your House 9 in July, it was Shawn Michaels, Ahmed Johnson, and now Sid
Yeah,
versus Owen, Hart, Bulldog, and Vader.
you know what was weird though? Like, I don't understand how you try to kill Shawn Michaels and then Shawn Michaels is the one that brings him in. Because I think part of the storyline was that Shawn brought him back in.
Mm-hmm.
They actually said it in the storyline. He's like, "Oh,
Yeah,
because you're my friend. You're still my friend, even though you almost
yeah,
killed
it
me."
was on Monday Night Raw. Shawn Michaels and Ahmed were in the ring, and they were talking about how I don't know, I don't quite remember if we're belittling the Ultimate Warrior at this point, but he had announced that I brought in a friend to be in the corner, and of course everybody starts thinking, "Oh, is it Nash? Is it Hall? What the, was it?" And then it was Sycho Sid, and everybody's like, "Wait, what?" They weren't expecting that.
No. This time he's a babyface,
and that doesn't work. For Sid, it doesn't work. But anyway, Sid's team loses the match, so his losing streak continues. This man's just got no luck to start. The next night on Raw, Sid started his next feud, this time with the British Bulldog. So, kind of rekindled from a couple of years prior for Beach Blast and stuff. He faced him at SummerSlam and won, which was a pretty decent match. So, following that, at In Your House, 10 in September, during the Shawn Michaels Mankind match, which was one of my favorites.
That was a great match. Was that Mind Games?
Yeah.
It was Mind Games, yeah. It's a great match.
That's where Shawn started being hardcore with Mankind, because now the tables are being used, and we're getting a little extreme in this one. Yeah, it was pretty. It was a nice change from what we were.
Style, yeah, yep,
yeah. Vader had actually come out to double team Shawn Michaels in that match, and then Sid came out to make the save, which is still to me weird. And this actually set up the Sid Vader feud,
right?
Which could have been better, but we got what we got. It was actually that culminated at In Your House 11 in October. They actually fought in the number one contenders match.
Right. Sid had said that he stole the Vader, or Jim Cornette said that Sid stole the Vader bomb.
The Vader bomb, yeah.
Vader bomb
was this the power bomb match?
Something like that, yeah. But the funny thing is that nobody did the power bomb. I don't think.
No, not on the.
Or to win at least, yeah. Nobody.
Would have been cool if they did it.
Sid beat him with a choke slam, right? Was it a choke slam?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Sid said in an interview that Vader was too fat. He couldn't. He said even if I wanted to, I couldn't power bomb him.
And even if I think even if he jumped into it, he couldn't do it.
He said it. Even if he helped me, I couldn't get him. There was no way I could get him up. So, and this is just a result of Shawn Michaels hating Vader and basically swapping out Vader in the main event program with him for Sid, because he didn't like the way Vader worked, and supposedly Vader stunk, and he didn't like wash his wrestling gear or something like that. This is according to Jim Ross. And so he had threatened, and we'll get into it another time in the SummerSlam episode 96. But
yeah,
so basically, he's lucky that Shawn hated Vader and said, "Just put me with Sid."
And that's what they did, because that was a number one contenders match. Sid wins it, so he goes on to Survivor Series to face Shawn Michaels for the title.
But they were both baby faces too, leading into that match. They were both good.
Even though what Sid did at the end of it was a heel move.
Right. But I'm saying going into it.
Going into it. Yeah. But I kind of had a feeling the whole time that he was going to turn.
Yeah, you got the impression.
He had to.
They were remember they had teamed up in a tag team match, and Shawn had super kicked him by accident, and then they were feuding backstage, and it was a whole big lead in, and they were both baby faces. Again, I've said this in another episode. I was there that night at Survivor Series 96. Shawn gets booed out of the building. They didn't know how over Sid was. Sid was over as hell. And the people were cheering for Sid to win that match, especially in New York. So,
we're weird when we chant for people, man. We take it to a whole new level.
And the anti-hero thing was starting to take off with Austin and everything. So Sid was another guy that was kind of like an anti-hero. He wasn't a traditional babyface by no means. So he was over as hell. They're cheering him, and then what he hit Jose Lothario with the camera, right?
Yeah.
He bumps into him. Did he actually? What if he bumped into him?
I think he tapped him with it.
He kind of tapped him. He didn't like nail him.
He didn't really hit him with it like a wrestler would get. Right. He kind of just like.
Yeah.
Because then you remember they did. We'll get into it in a minute. At the Rumble, they kind of did the same thing again.
Yeah.
With using the same camera thing, which was ridiculous.
Right. But then he had Sean outside the ring. He had Sean with the camera. So then he's like, now he's a heel. Now he's a heel.
Yeah, which everybody was still fine with.
Yeah.
Because this was really, if they had gone with the original plan, I believe this is where Vader was supposed to become the
Vader was supposed to win the title
at Survivor Series.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because you remember we talked about a while back the whole plan that Vince had at WrestleMania 12, for a split second, right before he thought of Sean Brett 2, was I want Warrior Vader for next year. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, all the plans fell apart with that. But even if Vader would have been the champion, I think it would have only been for a second.
No, he was supposed to lose it at Royal Rumble. He was supposed to lose it.
Or even the next month, because now following Survivor Series and Sid's now the WWE champion, he's facing Bret the Hitman Hart, and Shawn Michaels is getting the winner at the Royal Rumble. So now you see where this is where it kind of started with the whole Bret Shawn thing as well. You could see it because Shawn was doing the commentating at ringside for this match. And what's funny is Bret had Sid beat. He had him tapping, but the referee was distracted. Oh, not distracted. I'm sorry, he was knocked out. Shawn was doing the commentary. Sid and Bret are fighting on the outside, and then Sid pushes Shawn. Ultimately, Bret feels he got screwed one of the many times going forward because Sid retained the title. And so now we've got Sid versus Shawn set up in San Antonio for the Royal Rumble. So this is where you can see that they're kind of leaning towards Bret and Shawn for WrestleMania, because now if Shawn wins the title at the Royal Rumble, then Bret should ultimately be winning the Royal Rumble. And we've gotten into all of that.
It becomes such a chaotic mess in '97, yes, in the early part of 97.
In the beginning of it, yes.
Because, and we'll get into the Royal Rumble in a second, Sid was doing, from what I understand, Sid was actually doing good as a heel champion. Mm-hmm. They were doing good in the house shows and stuff. Like, because when Shawn was champion, the business was bad, really bad. I'm not saying it's his fault. I'm just saying just the reality of it was bad.
It was.
So Sid finally got that run. He was over. He was a heel, and then he goes into that Royal Rumble match with Shawn in Texas. There's a funny story that Sid was supposed to appear at some press conference prior to that, and he overslept and didn't show up.
Nice.
And then Vince was livid at him, and he was like, "Come on, man! Like, this guy's the champion." And I don't know.
It was, like you said, it was a whole chaotic year, man. But in any event, he goes into the Royal Rumble now, and this is now Lothario's going to be his final appearance.
Didn't Sid beat up Jose Lothario's son or something like that before that?
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
he was sitting in the ringside or something. Yeah. He grabbed him, and now Sid's doing the full-on heel thing, which was I loved it.
People were still cheering for him. It was still cheering for him.
I really liked him as the champion going into
1997.
Yeah. He held the belt great. I'm like, this is what y'all should have did 5 years prior.
WWE kind of pretends this never happened too.
What?
That whole Sid run. When you think about it,
whatever they want. They try to pretend a lot of things that don't exist anymore. But whatever.
But it was good. He was good as heel champion.
He was. Now, unfortunately, with him losing the title to Shawn, we all remember what happened shortly after that. I'm not going to get into the whole thing. Shawn forfeits the title for apparent injury. That even Bret Hart disputed, claiming Michaels didn't want to drop the title to him. We've discussed this.
It was such a waste taking the belt off of Sid, only
to find out that it's vacated.
It gets vacated. Like,
they didn't know. I mean,
I know. I mean,
I'm wondering. Looking at it now, I'm wondering if Vince sensed something after that match and then going into the Royal Rumble, which is why Bret didn't win it. Because if you're setting up Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart, and now you've completed the first piece of the puzzle, and you got Shawn as the champion, and now all of a sudden, Bret just to win the Rumble and go on to WrestleMania, and the plan was changed, and now Austin wins it and doesn't get a title shot. I'm wondering if something had happened back there between the time of that match and the ending of that Rumble.
No, it was just to create a little bit more controversy. That's all. Bret was still going to go to WrestleMania. Okay. Yeah, Bret was going to WrestleMania because Stone Cold won, but it was under controversial. It was a controversial win. So that fatal four way or whatever it was, that was supposed to be for number one contendership. It eventually became for the title
for the title.
because
Thanks to Sean.
right. So that's pretty much what happened with that. It's a shame. Then get into what happens after that.
Well, the next night after In Your House, after Bret Hart wins the title on February 17th, 1997 on Raw, Sid beats Bret for the title when Steve Austin interfered. And now this was Sid's second reign. The interference from
I was
Austin.
so pissed off, man. I was angry, man. I was like, God damn it, you just got the title back last night, man. Jesus.
The title was vacated. Bret vindicates himself, he gets the belt, and now it just goes back on to Sid. This is where that, like we just said, the whole chaos. Like they don't know what WrestleMania's main event is going to be. And what we wound up getting was Sid versus The Undertaker. And if I'm not mistaken, right before WrestleMania, Sid did defend it against Bret again, didn't he?
It was
a steel cage match, yes.
That was a great match, too.
And that was, I believe, Austin again, on The Undertaker, and then Shawn Michaels. I do remember Shawn Michaels kind of skipping around the ring there, pretending like he was going to hit somebody, but he never did.
I remember that Bret had the match won, and Undertaker slammed the door, and it was Undertaker and Austin that interfered in the match. Because remember, if Bret wins that match, that submission match is for the title,
exactly,
versus Austin. So
and
they
Taker doesn't want to lose his title match.
Right. So Bret was about to get out of the ring, and then Undertaker slammed the door in his face, and then Sid won. Then Bret went crazy, and he pushed Vince down. And he's like, "I've been getting screwed here," and yeah. So
that was great.
That was great stuff.
Hey, contrary to what some people will say, man, Bret played a great heel.
No, he was a great heel.
So, in any event, now WrestleMania 13, you got Sycho Sid versus The Undertaker. Not exactly the main event match that we were looking for.
They just threw it together at the last minute. It didn't even. It didn't make sense to me at all. It didn't make sense.
And again, this is a match 5 years too late.
Yeah,
because we wanted to see these two guys fight 5 years earlier, when it was Sid Justice and the heel Undertaker. So, but in any event, at WrestleMania Unlucky 13, The Undertaker beats Sid and becomes the WWE champion. Long overdue in my book, because he had gone 6 years without it. So, congratulations to him for that.
Yeah, but listen, nothing against The Undertaker, but Sid, they messed up all of Sid's momentum. Sid had, if you think about it, Sid had all that momentum. He should have never lost the belt. Like, really. I understand the match was the plan was Bret versus Shawn, the rematch, but they should have pivoted because Sid was so over as a heel champion. They could have had him hold on to that title for longer instead of having him drop it and then Shawn. But I mean, you can't predict Shawn losing his smile. But my point is you broke Sid's momentum, because then when he gets the title back, he was still over as a heel, but he kind of lost some momentum, and then you fed him to The Undertaker. And I'm sorry, like, Sid is here. Even though Sid was a good heel, Undertaker's here.
Exactly.
So you're making the fans choose Undertaker over Sid. So you're kind of, and you should have built Sid as one of the big powerhouses in the Federation instead of bringing him down. I didn't like what they did with Sid, man. That was messed up. Like, they kind of sabotaged, and they made him a placeholder for the championship.
Pretty much they did. But until they could figure out what they were going to do.
Right. And then they put it on Undertaker to buy them some more time. Mm-hmm. So
if they would have built this matchup after Fatal 4-Way, saying, regardless, you two guys are going to WrestleMania, you're going to fight each other, and you have this rivalry between them for the next 6 weeks, because I believe WrestleMania was in March that year.
Yeah.
You build that up, it could have been better than what it was. Even if you didn't know if it was going to be a one-on-one match or the main event at WrestleMania, you still booked it at that point, and you still had them feuding.
And that match was trash too, because they had Bret Hart come out, and
you had Shawn there.
It was a big mess. It
was a whole cluster. You know what?
Yeah. So
unfortunately,
they kind of cut Sid's legs underneath him.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. So, and then unfortunately now, he wasn't seen again until May 12th, 97, until on Raw. He returned as a fan favorite now, because now, again, don't know what to do with him. He beat Owen Hart to become LOD's partner for the King of the Ring against Owen, Bulldog, and Neidhart, which, the Hart Foundation won, because now they're building up momentum and that match was pretty good. With him, no ring rust on Sid. He looked pretty good in that match. Of course, the Hearts are gonna win. Like I said, they get the momentum as being the top heel faction. So June 9th, now Sid beats Owen Hart before disappearing now for over a month. So now he's scattered, in the wind. Nobody knows what's going on. His last match was actually a loss to Owen Hart in a house show in Toronto. He did, however, return in July on the 14th for a brief final appearance before leaving WWE to recover from a neck injury that he needed surgery on.
I think that was when he got into that really bad car accident in Canada somewhere. He gets into a really nasty car accident, and then it basically forces him out.
Unfortunately, once again he's having to go out on ridiculous circumstances. You built this guy up the beginning of the year, and now he's pretty much nothing midway through the year. I didn't get it. And this was the Sycho Sid run with the title. Like I said, I really liked it. The belt was good on him.
That's when he ruled the world, man. Because I am the man that rules. Well, I loved him as a heel, man.
He would do kind of like the Diesel thing. He do the fist bumps with the fans. Yep. They went nuts.
They loved it. They used to go crazy. Yeah.
You hyped them all up and you shot them down real quick. It's just unbelievable.
It's like they never had plans. They never really had plans for him. They just kind of like.
It's almost like
Sid,
they didn't want to do this.
No, it's like, hey, Sid, we need your help. Come in here. And then he got himself over, and they're like, wait a minute, this wasn't in our plans. What do we do now?
Exactly. I honestly don't think he was ever supposed to be WWE champion.
No, it doesn't. He wasn't
because Sean
because of Vader. It was Vader. Yes. Yeah.
But he proved, hey, look, I can run with this. And Vince, you can run with it, but I'm still taking it off of you, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with you. What
a waste, man! It's underrated. It's an underrated run, man. It's just Sid just had bad luck, man. It's like his career, and it gets worse later on. But
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, either he screws himself over or he just has some bad luck. Something just always goes wrong with this guy.
First time around, he screwed himself over. This time around, it wasn't.
No, it's not his fault.
The Gene Skisny line. It wasn't my fault.
He had really bad that neck injury. I remember he said he had really bad like nerve damage too in his arm. He couldn't lift like his right arm. He was in bad shape. So that's pretty much the Sycho Sid run. So we'll cover the next part of his career. Unfortunately, it's kind of a sad part of his career. But
1999 to 2001, he fought his way back from injury to get back into the ring, only to we'll get into it. I don't even want to talk about it right now.
Yeah. So you guys let us know what you think about Sycho Sid, and please like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys soon.
Take care, guys.